Welcome to the How to Easy channel, where we dive into the world of fascinating, curiosity-inspiring, and downright mind-blowing things. In this video, I will talk about depression. What is the neurological background of depression? How is a healthy brain different from that of a person living with depression? And what types of depression exist? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more content from the How to Easy channel. Let's begin. First of all, for depression to develop, you need a gene and an environmental loss. In depression, an untreated early trauma is often triggered by a later crisis in a person who has the gene or genetic package predisposed to depression. For example, it's common for a child's parents to divorce when they are around 3 or 4 years old, and neither the mother nor the father is able to focus on the child's emotional needs. The child is left in the background while the divorce takes center stage. The child, unfortunately, learns that their emotions aren't that important, leading to emotional neglect. Later, at the age of, say, 25, when they feel a bit distanced from their friends, they may fall into depression because the childhood emotional neglect is triggered by the perceived neglect from their friends. This happens in a person who has the gene or genetic package predisposed to depression. However, just because you have the genes for depression doesn't mean you will definitely become depressed. It just means it's more likely to develop in response to a later crisis. If a childhood unresolved trauma combines with this predisposition, depression can easily develop later in life in response to a hardship or crisis. There are two types of depression: typical and atypical, as well as endogenous and reactive depression. This means we can distinguish depression in two ways. Let's start with typical and atypical depression. Typical depression is the kind most people think of when they hear depression. The person appears unmotivated, down, and slowed down. If I mention depression, you are probably thinking of typical depression. It is also characterized by what is called psychomotor retardation. This means that their behavior, movement, and speech are visibly slowed, with slow or poor reactivity. If something happens, they do not respond or respond very slowly. Also, common in typical depression are insomnia and weight loss, along with a decrease in appetite. Many people don't know this, but weight loss is one of the possible criteria for diagnosing depression, as loss of appetite and weight reduction can often occur with it. So, typical depression is what we imagine when we think of depression. But there is also atypical depression, which might seem like the opposite, but it's still depression. A person with atypical depression is often restless and shows psychomotor agitation instead of psychomotor retardation, meaning they have visible restlessness, like fidgeting or pacing. They tend to eat more with increased appetite, and this can lead to weight gain. Atypical depression can be easily confused with another mental disorder. What other mental disorder comes to mind from this description? Let me give you a hint. It's also a mood disorder. Those of you thinking of bipolar disorder are on the right track. A person with atypical depression is more likely to also have bipolar disorder. In bipolar disorder, manic phases, where a person feels overly excited and positive, alternate with depressive phases. In addition to typical depression, as I mentioned, there is endogenous and reactive depression. Some people are more responsive to their environment, and their depression develops as a result of external factors like grief or loss. Their psyche responds to this loss with depression, so we call this type reactive depression. A benefit of reactive depression is that since it responds well to environmental changes, it also responds well to therapy. For example, during therapy, the client might begin to dismantle the belief that they are worthless, realizing that it was their mother's childhood criticism and emotional neglect that made them feel this way. If they start to distance themselves from their mother, say by moving out, they will respond well to this change, and their depression will decrease. However, in endogenous depression, where no external cause is visible, individuals respond less well to psychotherapy, but better to medication. Most people fall somewhere between these two types. Now that we know the types, what is the neurological background of depression? What happens in the brain due to depression? One theory is the so-called monoamine theory. If I asked you if you knew what dopamine, serotonin, or norepinephrine are, these names might sound familiar to you. Monoamines are a type of neurotransmitter. The word neurotransmitter means that these substances are responsible for communication between two nerve cells. For example, if I think dog, one nerve cell passes this information to another nerve cell, which then makes me think of the word cute when I think of a dog. This transmission is facilitated by neurotransmitters. Dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine are examples of monoamines. Research has shown that there is less of these neurotransmitters in the brains of depressed individuals. They are lacking. A lack of serotonin causes negative symptoms like a lack of motivation, sadness, and a low mood. So, what can we do? We prevent serotonin from being depleted from the body, so more of it stays, and the person feels better. This is exactly what SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, antidepressants do. They prevent serotonin from being depleted. Psychiatrists still commonly use SSRIs today. The other neurotransmitters also play a role. A lack of dopamine causes a lack of positive emotions. So, a lack of serotonin makes us sad, while a lack of dopamine prevents us from feeling happy. Norepinephrine deficiency is responsible for both positive and negative symptoms, meaning we don't just feel sad but also not happy. These three neurotransmitters are significantly deficient in people with depression. So, what is the solution? We either replace them or prevent them from being depleted from the body, as SSRI medications do. However, this theory has been replaced by a newer one, the inflammation hypothesis. According to this theory, a chronic inflammation in the body reduces brain flexibility, which could lead to a deficiency of dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine. The inflammation damages brain flexibility, scientifically known as reduced neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity refers to the brain's ability to adapt and change. This is the capacity that allows our brain to respond to environmental factors like the death of a loved one, emotional neglect, or school bullying. Genetic predisposition and environmental factors together are responsible for the reduced neuroplasticity of the brain and the decreased levels of neurotransmitters in the body, which ultimately cause depression. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. It really helps us out. And if you'd like to see more content like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. We truly appreciate your support. Also, if you have any thoughts, suggestions, or just want to share your opinion, feel free to drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you.